I knew something was wrong the moment the front door opened. It was a Tuesday, 7:15 p.m. I remember because I just pulled the lasagna out of the oven, Victor's favorite, the one with 3 kinds of cheese and that bolognese sauce I'd been simmering since noon. 23 years of marriage, and I still made his favorite dinner every Tuesday, like clockwork. The door swung open, and there he was. My husband, Victor. 6'2", salt and pepper hair, wearing that charcoal suit I'd picked up from the dry cleaners that morning, with a woman half my age clinging to his arm. I froze at the foot of the stairs, oven mitts still on my hands. The smell of basil and oregano suddenly made me nauseous. She was maybe 26, 27 at most.
Long auburn hair cascading down her back in perfect waves, the kind of waves I used to have before I spent 2 decades putting everyone else first.
She wore a white sundress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget and heels so high I wondered how she could walk. But she wasn't walking. She was gliding.
Like she owned the place.
Victor didn't even look at me. Just kicked off his shoes and said casual as ordering coffee, Yvette, meet Lacey. She'll be staying here for a while. Staying here. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The oven mitts slipped from my hands and hit the hardwood floor with a soft thud that seemed to echo through our 5-bedroom colonial in Westchester. Excuse me, my voice came out smaller than I intended. Weaker. That's when she looked at me. Really looked at me. Her eyes pale blue, cold as January, traveled from my worn slippers to my faded jeans to the apron I'd bought at Target 3 years ago. Taking inventory. Calculating my worth. And finding me lacking. She tilted her head, auburn waves spilling over one shoulder, and smiled. Not a friendly smile. A victorious one. Your son already knows about us, she said, her voice honey-sweet with poison underneath. Why don't you... The floor shifted beneath my feet. Marcus knows my son. My 21-year-old son who I'd raised, who I'd driven to hockey practice at 5 a.m. on Saturdays, who I'd helped through calculus and college applications and his first heartbreak. He knew Marcus has been very understanding, Victor said, finally meeting my eyes. There was something different in his face. Something cold I'd never seen before, not even during our worst fights. He gets it. He knows people change. Relationships evolve. Relationships evolve, I repeated, my voice rising, now cracking. Is that what we're calling this Victor side? Like I was the problem. Like I was being difficult. Yvette, let's be adults about this. You and I, we've been going through the motions for years. You know it. I know it. It's time to be honest. Honest. The man who'd been screwing someone young enough to be his daughter wanted to talk to me about honesty. I opened my mouth to scream, to cry, to say something, anything, when I heard footsteps behind me.
Soft.
Deliberate. The click of sensible heels on hardwood. I turned, and there she was. My mother-in-law. Diane. 72 years old, 5'0", wearing her signature pearls and that expression she reserved for people she considered beneath her, which for the record had always included me.
She'd been here the whole time.
Sitting in the living room. Waiting. Diane walked past me without so much as a glance, moving toward Victor and his. Her. Toward Lacey. She placed one wrinkled, manicured hand on the girl's arm, a gesture of approval, of alliance, and then turned to face me. The look in her eyes was colder than her son's. Sharper. Yvette, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but cutting through the room like a knife. Don't make this difficult. Victor has been unhappy for a very long time. She paused. Let that sink in. Let me absorb the betrayal of it, not just from my husband, but from the woman I'd spent 2 decades trying to please. The woman I'd hosted every Thanksgiving and Christmas. The woman whose medications I'd picked up, whose appointments I'd driven her to, whose life I'd made easier in 1,000 tiny ways she'd never once acknowledged.
Diane stepped closer. So close I could smell her Chanel. No. 5.
"It's time he finds real happiness," she whispered. The house went silent. So silent I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. Could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Could hear the sound of my entire life cracking down the middle. Victor moved past me, guiding Lacey toward the stairs. Our stairs, leading her up to our bedroom. And my mother-in-law followed her heels, clicking a steady rhythm of judgment. I stood there in the foyer alone with the smell of lasagna still hanging in the air, and my 23 years of marriage walking away without looking back. And that's when I realized something
Cold.
something clear.
Something dangerous.
They thought I would cry, beg, gend, make a scene, and then quietly disappear the way women like me were supposed to when we were no longer wanted. They thought I would make this easy. I reached down and picked up the oven mitts from where they'd fallen.
Smoothed my apron.
And smiled. Because they had no idea what they'd just done. They had no idea who they were dealing with. And by the time I was finished, they wouldn't just regret this moment. They would beg me to take them back. The smell of lasagna lingered in the kitchen long after they'd gone upstairs. Standing there, staring at the cooling dish on the counter, I was suddenly 28 again. Young. Stupid in love. Victor's new wife standing in the same kitchen, except it wasn't our kitchen back then. It was Diane's.
We'd lived with his mother for the first 3 years of our marriage.
A temporary arrangement Victor had promised. Just until he got the promotion. Just until we saved enough for our own place. 3 years turned into watching Diane criticize every meal I cooked, every choice I made, every word out of my mouth. 3 years of biting my tongue while she reminded me daily that her son could have done better. But I'd smiled through it. Made her coffee exactly how she liked it, 2 sugars, cream on the side. Took her to her doctor's appointments when Victor was too busy.
Held her hand through her breast cancer scare when her precious son couldn't take time off work.
And when we finally moved out, when Victor got that VP position at the investment firm, I thought we'd turned a corner. I was wrong. The thing about sacrifice is that nobody really sees it happening. It's not dramatic. It's not one big moment. It's 1,000 small choices that add up so quietly you don't realize you've given everything away until there's nothing left. Like when Marcus was 6 months old and Victor's firm needed him in Chicago for 3 months. "It's my career, Yvette," he'd said. "This is how we build our future." So I raised our son alone. Middle of the night feedings. Diaper changes. First words, first steps, all of it just me. I took photos, sent videos. Never watched, kept a journal of every milestone, so he wouldn't miss anything. He missed everything anyway. When Marcus was 4, Diane had her first stroke. Victor was in the middle of a deal, always in the middle of something. So I moved her into our guest room. Managed her medications, her physical therapy, her moods, all while working double shifts at Mercy General because Victor's temporary cash flow problem meant we needed my nursing salary to keep the house. Temporary turned into 5 years. I remember one night Marcus was maybe 7, coming home after a 16-hour shift. My feet were screaming. I'd held the hand of a dying woman that afternoon, watched her family say goodbye, then scrubbed myself clean and moved on to the next patient like nothing had happened. Victor was in his study. Doctor closed. Always closed. I found Marcus asleep at the kitchen table, his math homework half done, a note in his little boy handwriting, "Waiting for you, Mom." I'd cried then, quietly, so no one would hear. Made him a grilled cheese at 10 p.m., carried him to bed, kissed his forehead. And the next morning, I got up and did it all again. If you've ever given everything to someone who later turned away, you'll understand this part. You'll know what it feels like to build a life with your bare hands, not for yourself, but for the people you love. To measure your worth, not in what you have, but in what you give. I held this family together. Through Diane's second stroke, through Victor's business losses that somehow never affected his golf membership or his suits. Through Marcus's teenage years, when he needed a parent who was actually there, I was there. Always. And somewhere along the way, I became invisible. Not all at once. Gradually. Like watching yourself fade in a photograph left too long in the sun.
Victor stopped asking about my day.
Stopped noticing when I got my hair cut or wore something new. Not that I bought much new, since every extra dollar went to Marcus's college fund or Diane's medical bills or keeping this house running. He started working late. Big client dinner. Industry event. Networking opportunity. I'd wait up sometimes watching headlights pass on our street, listening for his car. He'd come home smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. His collar slightly wrong, and I'd pretend not to notice because, God help me, I was afraid. Afraid of what it would mean. Afraid of breaking apart what I'd spent decades building. Afraid that maybe Diane was right all along and I really wasn't good enough. So I worked harder, made better dinners, kept the house immaculate, smiled wider, disappeared a little more each day. Last Christmas, I'd spent 3 days making Victor's favorite cookies, those ridiculous chocolate peppermint things that take forever. Left them on the kitchen counter with a note made with love. He never mentioned them. Not once. I found the container a week later, untouched, shoved behind the coffee maker. That should been my sign.
That should been the moment I knew.
But I'd looked at Marcus home from college happy whole and told myself it was worth it. That sacrifice meant something. That love was supposed to be patient, supposed to endure. I believed that right up until tonight. Right up until I watched my husband walk his mistress up the stairs. I'd climbed 10,000 times carrying laundry groceries, the weight of keeping us all together. The lasagna had gone cold. I turned off the oven and realized I'd spent 23 years feeding people who'd never once asked if I was hungry. That was about to change. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? They were in my bedroom. Our bedroom. The room where I'd nursed Marcus through chickenpox, where I'd folded thousands of loads of laundry, where I'd laid awake countless nights, wondering if Victor would ever look at me the way he used to. Now he was looking at her that way. In our bed. Under the quilt my grandmother had made. I sat in the living room until dawn, watching headlights cut through the darkness, listening to the house settle around me like it was trying to decide whose side it was on. At 6 a.m., I heard footsteps on the stairs. Victor, dressed for work. Ty already nodded. He walked past me like I was a piece of furniture, not even worth acknowledging, and headed straight for the kitchen. I followed. He was making coffee. My coffee maker. Using the beans I'd bought at Trader Joe's on Monday because they were his favorite and on sale. "We need to talk," he said, not looking at me. 3 days ago, those words would made my heart race. I would hope they meant something good, counseling maybe. Working things out. Fighting for us. Now, I knew better. Lacey needs space. Victor continued, measuring grounds with the precision he used for everything except our marriage. She's not comfortable with the current arrangement. The current arrangement, I repeated slowly, where I live in my own house, he sighed. That same tired put-upon sigh. Like I was the inconvenience. Yvette, be reasonable. The house is too small for this to work long-term. We need boundaries. Boundaries. The guest room is perfectly comfortable. You'd have your own bathroom, your own space. You want me to move into the guest room?
My voice sounded strange.
Distant. Like it was coming from somewhere outside my body. So your girlfriend can have our bedroom. Don't be dramatic. He pressed the brew button. The machine hissed to life. It's temporary. Just until we figure things out. Figure things out. Like this was a logistics problem. Like he was rearranging office furniture, not dismantling our entire life. I heard heels on the stairs. Diane. Already dressed at 6:15 a.m., pearls in place, that expression of cold satisfaction she wore so well. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw it clearly for the first time.
She'd been waiting for this.
Hoping for it. All those years of passive-aggressive comments, all that quiet disapproval, this was what she'd wanted all along. "Yvette," she said, settling herself at my kitchen table. "Victor and I have been discussing the house."
My stomach dropped.
"The house," I said. "It needs work. Updates. It's rather dated." She wrinkled her nose, like the word tasted bad. "Victor's willing to invest in renovations, but he'll need you to sign over your portion. Temporarily, of course, just to facilitate the process." The room tilted. Sign over my portion. The house I'd helped buy with my nursing salary when Victor's sure thing investment had tanked. The house I'd maintained, repaired, cleaned for 2 decades while he played golf and built his career. "Temporarily," I whispered. "You understand?" Diane smiled.
It didn't reach her eyes.
"A woman in your position. Well, you won't be needing all this space. A woman in your position. Cast aside. Replaced. Disposable." That's when Lacey appeared wearing one of my robes, the white terry cloth one I'd gotten for my 40th birthday. She poured herself coffee like she'd lived here for years, not hours, and leaned against the counter with an ease that made my skin crawl. "I was thinking," she said, addressing Victor, "not me. We could knock out that wall between the kitchen and dining room. Make it more open concept. Modern."
Great idea, babe, Victor said.
"Babe. And the master bedroom god, that wallpaper has to go."
Maybe a soft gray, something sophisticated.
She was redecorating, planning renovations, erasing me. And they were letting her.
Well, Diane said, standing.
"I'll leave you 3 to work out the details. Yvette, I trust you'll be reasonable about this." She paused at the doorway. "After all, it's the least you can do. Victor's been unhappy for so long. The house is simply wasted on you." The door clicked shut behind her. Wasted on me. 23 years. 23 years of sacrifice and patience and love, and I was a waste. Victor set his coffee mug down. "I'll have my attorney draw up the paperwork. Simple transfer, temporary arrangement. You'll sign it next week. Not a question. A command. And if I don't," my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And what I saw in his eyes was worse than anger, worse than hatred. Indifference. "Then this gets ugly, Yvette.
Lawyers, courts, custody questions about Marcus's college fund."
Do you really want that custody of our adult son's college fund? The fund I'd started with my nursing salary. The fund I'd built with overtime shifts and skipped lunches and saying no to myself for 20 years. "Think about it," Victor said, grabbing his keys. "I need an answer by Friday." Then he kissed Lacey right there in my kitchen and left for work. I stood there frozen while his mistress hummed and scrolled through her phone, planning the life she was going to live in my house and my space, wearing my future like a dress she'd bought on sale. That afternoon, while they thought I was at the grocery store, I came back early. Heard voices in the kitchen. Low. Conspiratorial.
I pressed myself against the hallway wall.
"Won't be a problem," Diane was saying. "Once she signs, we can proceed." "You're sure she will?" Lacey's voice. Younger. Uncertain. "Oh, she will. Victor, this time." confident, cold.
Yvette doesn't have fight in her.
She never has. She'll sign move into some little apartment and that'll be that. And if she doesn't, a pause. Then Victor almost laughing. Then we make her life hell until she does. Either way, once she signs, she's gone. Once she signs, she's gone. The words hung in the air like smoke. I backed away slowly, carefully, until I reached the front door. Stepped outside. Stood on the porch I'd swept 1,000 times. And something inside me, something that had been bending for 23 years, finally snapped. If you've ever trusted someone so deeply that their betrayal made you question your own worth, you're not alone. You're not weak. And you're not crazy for believing that love should mean something. I believed it too. Right up until the moment I realized they'd been counting on my kindness to destroy me. But here's what they didn't know. I hadn't survived 2 decades of Diane's cruelty, Victor's neglect, and my own exhaustion by being weak. I'd survived by being smart. And I was done playing the victim in their story. I pulled out my phone, made 3 calls, and began to disappear. The couch became my bed. Not because they asked me to leave the bedroom, not yet, but because I couldn't bear to walk past that door. Couldn't bear to hear the sounds that leaked through laughter, whispers, the creak of bed springs that used to know only my weight. So I slept downstairs. If you could call it sleeping. Mostly I stared at the ceiling, counting the hairline cracks in the plaster I'd been meaning to fix for 3 years. Tracing them with my eyes, like a map of everywhere I'd failed. There were 17. I counted them every night, sometimes twice. The house was so quiet in those hours. Even the walls seemed to avoid me. At 3 a.m. on Thursday, or maybe it was Friday, the days had started bleeding together. I heard footsteps above me. Light. Quick. Quick.
Her footsteps moving from my bedroom to my bathroom.
The pipes groaned as she turned on the shower. My shower with the water pressure I'd finally gotten fixed last summer after calling 3 different plumbers. I pulled the blanket over my head and tried to remember what it felt like to belong somewhere. I couldn't. Marcus didn't return my calls. I'd tried Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning before dawn, my fingers shaking as I typed out a text I rewrote 6 times. Hi, honey. Can we talk, love you? Mom.
The message showed as read at 9:47 a.m.
No response. I called again Friday afternoon, sitting in my car in the Costco parking lot because I couldn't bear to go home yet. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Hey, it's Marcus. Leave a message. The beep felt like a judgment. Hi, sweetheart. It's Mom. I wanted to hear your voice. I miss you. Call me when you can. Okay, I love you. I sat there for 20 minutes after hanging up, watching people load groceries into their trunks. Families. Couples. Normal people living normal lives. A woman parked next to me, young, maybe 30, with a toddler in a car seat. She smiled as she passed, that casual smile strangers share in parking lots. I tried to smile back. My face wouldn't cooperate.
She looked away quickly.
Hurried to her car. Even strangers could see I was broken. Saturday, I ran into Linda Chen at the pharmacy. Linda, who'd lived 3 doors down for 12 years, who I'd exchanged Christmas cookies with, whose daughter had babysat Marcus when he was little. She saw me in the vitamin aisle and froze. Yvette, she said, her voice careful. Too careful. How are you? The way she said it, not like a question, but like condolence. I'm fine, I lied. Just picking up, I heard about everything. She glanced around like she was checking for witnesses. Lowered her voice. Janet saw them at Santorelli's last week. Your husband and that woman. That woman. Not even a name. Just a category. A humiliation. They were very
Linda paused, searching for a word that wouldn't cut too deep.
public. Public. Holding hands at our favorite Italian restaurant where Victor used to take me for our anniversary. Where we'd celebrated Marcus's college acceptance. Where I'd thought we were happy. I'm sorry, Linda said, and I could see she meant it. But there was something else in her eyes, too. Something that looked like relief.
Relief that it was happening to me, not her.
Relief that my disaster made her life look stable by comparison. Thank you, I whispered. She touched my arm, brief, obligatory, and hurried away. I stood there, in the fluorescent lighting, holding a bottle of calcium supplements I didn't need, understanding for the first time that I'd become neighborhood gossip. Cautionary tale. Poor Yvette. Did you hear 23 years, and he just brought the mistress home? Can you imagine they were imagining? All of them. Whispering at book clubs and HOA meetings and Saturday morning coffee dates. My pain had become entertainment. I put the calcium back on the shelf and left. Sunday evening, I took out the trash. A simple thing. Mundane. The kind of task I'd done 1,000 times without thinking. The bag was heavy. They'd been ordering takeout all weekend, boxes and containers piling up. I dragged it to the curb, the plastic cutting into my palms, and something gold caught the streetlight. I stopped. Reached into the bag. My wedding ring. Not mine, his. The plain gold band I'd saved for 3 months to buy. The one I'd slipped onto his finger 23 years ago in a courthouse ceremony because we couldn't afford a real wedding. The one he'd promised to wear forever. Thrown away. Not even hidden. Just tossed in with leftover thy food and used paper towels like it meant nothing. Like we meant nothing. I stood there on the curb holding that ring, and something inside me finally cracked open. Not anger. Not yet. Just emptiness. A hollowness so profound I could feel it in my bones. I should have left years ago, I whispered to no one. But I hadn't. I'd stayed. I'd believed. I'd hoped. And now I was the fool standing on her own curb at dusk holding trash, while the woman who replaced her laughed in her bedroom. If you've ever sat in a room so quiet it started to echo your thoughts, you'll understand this silence. The kind that doesn't heal, just haunts. The kind that makes you question every choice, every sacrifice, every moment you chose love over dignity. Thank you to those who help keep these stories alive. Your kindness helps give voice to people who've been forgotten, who sit alone, in their pain, waiting to be seen again. I walked back inside.
The house smelled like her perfume now.
Expensive. Foreign. Foreign. Not home. I sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd refinished myself 5 years ago, and stared at that gold ring. 23 years reduced to something you throw away. But here's what they didn't understand. What no one understood.
You can only push someone so far before silence turns into something else.
Before hurt transforms. Before the person you thought was broken starts remembering who she was before she learned to disappear. I put the ring in my pocket, made another call, and began very quietly to plan. Monday morning, Victor left for work early.
Lacey was still asleep upstairs.
Diane had gone to her bridge club.
The house was mine for 2 hours.
I stood in the hallway outside Victor's office, the room I hadn't entered in months because he'd made it clear it was his space, and tried the door. Unlocked. Careless. Or maybe he just didn't think I mattered enough to worry about anymore.
The office smelled like leather and expensive cologne.
His desk was immaculate, organized with the precision he'd never applied to our marriage. Files stacked neatly. Pens arranged by color. Everything in its place. Except the folder on his desk. Left open. Almost like an invitation. I picked it up with shaking hands. The first document was a deed transfer form. Our house, the one I'd helped buy, the one I'd maintained for 23 years, being transferred solely into Victor's name. My signature line was blank. The second page made my blood run cold. Practice signatures. My name written over and over in handwriting that wasn't quite mine, but close enough. Yvette Morrison. Yvette Morrison. Yvette Morrison. Dozens of times, each one slightly different, like someone learning to forge my hand. I flipped through the rest. Bank statements from accounts I didn't recognize. Withdrawal records dating back 8 months. My retirement fund, the one I'd built with 20 years of nursing shifts, reduced to $347.12. $347. From $68,000. The room tilted.
I gripped the desk to stay upright.
He'd been draining it. Slowly. Methodically. While I'd worked double shifts and paid Diane's medical bills and kept this family running. While I'd trusted him.
I heard voices downstairs.
Light footsteps.
Lacey was awake.
"Coffee's ready, babe," she called out, her voice bright and careless. I pressed myself against the wall, holding the folder to my chest like evidence at a crime scene. "God, I can't wait until she's gone," Lacey said, closer now. "Kitchen, maybe. It's so awkward having her just existing here. Like a ghost no one wants to acknowledge." Victor's voice lower soon. "The paperwork's almost ready. But what if she won't sign a pause?" Then Diane's voice, when had she come back cold and measured she will? "I've been working on her. She's weak. Always has been. Push her just a little more and she'll crumble." And if she doesn't, Lacey again, uncertainty creeping in. Then we proceed without her consent. Victor, matter of fact. I have a friend in legal who can expedite things. A few forged signatures, some paperwork showing she's unstable. It won't be pretty, but it'll be effective.
Silence. Then Lacey, almost whispering, "You're really gonna do that? Just
Erase her. She'll disappear," Diane said.
one way or another. Once we're done, it'll be like she was never here at all."
I stood there frozen, holding proof of their conspiracy in my hands. 23 years. 23 years of loving a man who was planning to forge my signature and have me declared unstable so he could steal everything I'd built. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with numb fingers. A voicemail notification. From 4 months ago. How had I missed it? I pressed play, volume low. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Jennifer Park from Westfield Legal Services. I'm calling regarding unusual financial activity on your retirement account. We've detected several large unauthorized withdrawals initiated by a joint account holder. Please call me back immediately." I stopped the message. Looked at the papers in my hands. Looked at the door where 3 people were casually discussing my erasure over morning coffee. And something inside me, something that had been bending and breaking for years, finally crystallized into something hard, something clear, something dangerous. If you've ever found truth in the quiet moments after pain, you know what this part feels like. The moment when everything suddenly makes terrible, perfect sense. Thank you to everyone who supports these stories. Your kindness keeps hope alive for people still finding their voice after betrayal. I took photos of every document, every forged signature, every bank statement. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it.
Walked downstairs with steady steps.
Past the kitchen where they sat laughing, planning my disappearance. Out the front door. Got in my car. And made one more call. "Jennifer, this is Yvette Morrison. I got your message. 4 months late, but I got it. And I think we need to talk about fraud. All of it." My hands weren't shaking anymore. There comes a point when silence stops meaning defeat. It becomes preparation. I sat in Jennifer Park's office on Wednesday morning while Victor thought I was at the grocery store. The office was small, neat, with diplomas from Columbia Law on the wall and a view of the street below where normal people went about their normal lives. Jennifer was maybe 40, sharp-eyed with reading glasses perched on her head, and the kind of no-nonsense energy that made me feel for the first time in weeks like someone was actually listening. "Mrs. Morrison," she said, sliding the documents across her desk. "I need you to understand what we're looking at here." I nodded. My hands were steady now. Cold, but steady. "This house," she tapped the deed. "It's solely in your name. Pre-marital asset. Your father left it to you in 2001, and you never added Victor to the title." I blinked. "But Victor said whatever Victor said was a lie." Jennifer's voice was clinical precise. "He has no legal claim to this property. The mortgage is in your name. The taxes are in your name. He's been living in your house for 23 years. The room shifted. Recalibrated. The retirement account, she continued, those withdrawals were unauthorized. Your husband forged your electronic signature using information he had access to. That's federal fraud, Mrs. Morrison. Wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement." She pulled out another document. A printout with a mugshot. "And your houseguest, Lacey Ann Hartwell, she has an outstanding warrant in New Jersey. Credit card fraud, identity theft. She's been using multiple aliases." I stared at the photo. Same face. Different name. Different life. "They thought you were too broken to fight back," Jennifer said quietly.
Were they right? I looked up.
Met her eyes. "No," I said. My voice didn't shake. "They were wrong." For years I mistook generosity for love. Now I'm learning the quiet math of self-respect. I spent the next 3 days documenting everything. Photos of the forged signatures. Screenshots of bank statements. Recordings of voicemails, Victor's casual lies, Diane's cold manipulation, Lacey's complaints about my continued existence. I installed cameras while they slept. Tiny things barely visible tucked into bookshelves and smoke detectors. I watched the footage on my phone in my car parked in grocery store lots, documenting every conversation, every casual cruelty, every moment they thought no one was watching. Thursday afternoon, I opened a new bank account. Transferred the last of my nursing salary, the money they hadn't found yet, the emergency fund I'd kept in my maiden name from before we were married. $11,000. Not much, but mine. Friday morning, I made one more call. "This is Yvette Morrison. I need to report identity theft and financial fraud." The police were surprisingly efficient. Took my statement. Looked at my evidence. Assigned a detective. And then, the most satisfying part. I stopped paying for everything. Diane's car insurance, the one I'd been covering for 3 years since her temporary setback canceled. Victor's country club membership canceled. The credit cards I'd been paying off while he spent frozen. Every automatic payment, every silent subsidy, every financial thread I'd been holding together cut. It happened slowly, beautifully.
Saturday, Diane's pharmacy called.
Her prescription coverage had lapsed. Sunday, Victor's Amex was declined at brunch. I wasn't there, but Lacey called him furious, her voice shrill through the phone I could hear from the living room. Monday, the electricity bill bounced. Tuesday, the water. By Wednesday, they were panicking. My phone rang incessantly. Diane. Victor. Even Marcus finally, but I didn't answer. Each call went to voicemail, each message more desperate than the last. "Yvette, what the hell is going on? Mom-Dad says you're being difficult. You can't just do this, Yvette."
We had an arrangement. It's funny how silence can sound like thunder when guilt starts to echo.
I sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table, drinking coffee, watching my phone light up with their panic, and smiled. They'd taught me that love meant giving. Today I was teaching myself that love could also mean stopping. Thursday afternoon, Victor came home early, found me in the living room reading. "We need to talk," he said. His voice had an edge now. Fear, poorly disguised as anger. Do we... I didn't look up from my book. The bills, Yvette. Everything's bouncing. What did you do? I stopped paying for your life. I turned a page. Seemed fair considering you've been stealing mine. His face went white. You don't understand, I understand perfectly. I closed the book. Looked at him for the first time in days. I understand that you forged my signature. Stole my retirement. Brought your mistress into my house. Planned to have me declared incompetent so you could take everything. He stepped back. Actually stepped back. I also understand, I continued, my voice calm, cold, that Lacey has an outstanding warrant.
That this house is solely in my name.
That every financial crime you've committed is documented, photographed, and currently under review by the NYPD Fraud Division. The color drained completely from his face. You're bluffing. I stood up.
Walked past him toward the stairs.
Stopped. Turned. You have until Friday to leave. Take your mother. Take your mistress. Take whatever you can carry. But this house, this life you've been living, it was never yours. I climbed the stairs, leaving him standing in the foyer, finally understanding what it felt like to lose everything. For the first time in 23 years, I slept in my own bedroom that night. For the first time in months, I didn't count ceiling cracks. And when my phone buzzed at midnight with another desperate message from Victor, I turned it off and closed my eyes. Friday morning, I had an appointment.
Jennifer had sent the email at 9 a.m. sharp.
Subject line Morrison v.
Morrison preliminary hearing scheduled.
The storm was coming, but this time I was the one controlling the waves. Friday, 3 p.m. The living room of my house felt different now. Colder. The afternoon light cut through the windows at sharp angles, exposing dust particles floating in the air like evidence waiting to settle. Victor paced near the fireplace. Diane sat rigid on the sofa, her pearls catching the light. Lacey perched on the arm of Victor's chair, chewing her thumbnail, that confident swagger finally cracking. And I sat across from them, a manila folder on my lap, waiting. This is insane, Victor said, his voice tight. The bank froze everything. Everything, Yvette. Do you understand what you've done? I understand perfectly. Our accounts, your accounts, I corrected quietly. The ones you opened using my forged signature. Those accounts. He stopped pacing, stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language.
Diane leaned forward, her voice ice.